So something huge is going on in Hollywood right now. And according to one pretty compelling analysis, the entire thing is being driven by you, the audience. Today, we're going to break down the argument that the market is finally speaking, and it's sending a message that the big studios just can't afford to ignore anymore. So let's start with a really dramatic claim that gets to the heart of this whole thing. The source we're looking at says theaters have been pushed to the brink of extinction. But what's the real reason behind this crisis? Well, let's dig into the numbers. Yeah, this chart, it paints a pretty bleak picture. You can see revenue just fell off a cliff during the pandemic, right? But here's the key. Look at the recovery. It's just not there. It hasn't bounced back. And the analysis we're exploring today argues that this isn't just some post-lockdown hangover. No, it claims the problem is with the movies themselves. So what's the root of the problem, according to this analysis? Well, it all comes down to one thing, a phenomenon it calls ideological capture. The whole argument is that the major studios started prioritizing certain messages over just pure entertainment, and in doing so, they started pushing away a huge chunk of their audience. And, this quote from the source material really doesn't pull any punches. It draws a straight line, connecting what it calls the woke stuff directly to the struggling box office. The argument is simple. Audiences just got tired of movies that felt like they were being preached to. Okay, so the analysis doesn't just point fingers and talk about problems. It also points to what it sees as a potential solution. It actually highlights two specific movies that created this kind of box office explosion, an explosion it thinks could pivot the entire industry. First one up, the Super Mario Galaxy movie. I mean, just look at that number, a projected global opening of $350 million. That is staggering. And get this, the analysis notes that the pre-sale tickets were actually outpacing the original blockbuster. That suggests the audience's appetite for this kind of movie is just getting bigger. And it wasn't a one-off. The second film they spotlight is Project Hail Mary. After only 2 weekends in theaters, it had already blown past the $300 million mark worldwide. It was on a clear path to being profitable, which, let me tell you, is a massive win in today's movie market. Okay, now here's where it gets really wild. The analysis estimates that these two movies, just these two, could potentially make up 1/10 of all domestic ticket sales for the entire year. 1/10. That just goes to show you how massively important they are to keeping theaters afloat. So that leads to the big question, right? What is the secret sauce here? What do these two smash hits actually have in common? Well, according to the source, they share a very specific formula, one that it claims is the polar opposite of what's been failing. And the answer, according to this analysis, isn't that complicated. It argues there's this huge, underserved audience out there that has a thirst for wholesome, non-controversial content. And when you give them movies that deliver on that promise, like Mario and Project Hail Mary supposedly did, they show up in droves. Now, to really get what the source is arguing, we have to talk about a term it uses a lot: woke garbage. As you can see, it defines this as any content that's seen as overly ideological or preachy, and that strays from what it calls traditional storytelling, which, in the author's view, ends up alienating mainstream audiences. I think this slide does a great job of just laying out the source's entire argument visually. It's a clear this versus that. On the left, you've got the winning formula that it says films like Mario use: universal themes, traditional heroes, optimism. And on the right, you have the losing formula: ideological, divisive, and pessimistic. So the source uses this really vivid analogy to explain how it thinks beloved franchises have been mishandled. It calls it the skin suit method. The idea is that a studio takes a property people love, like Willow, guts it, and then wears its skin to push a totally new ideology that in the end just alienates the very fans who made it popular in the first place. And here's the thing. According to this analysis, this isn't just some internal problem for Hollywood. It argues that these decisions create these massive ripple effects that are felt across the entire economy. And this is a perfect illustration of that domino effect. It starts with one unpopular movie, but it doesn't stop there. The audience stays home, so the theater loses business and eventually closes. And that hurts the whole ecosystem around it. The food court next door, the shops in the mall, everything suffers. And then the analysis takes a huge leap and makes its boldest claim yet. It poses this massive what-if question. It speculates that if Hollywood had never gone down what it calls the woke road, not only would theaters be doing great, but entire related industries, like video games, would be on a totally different and, it argues, much more successful path. So, after laying all of that out, what's the big takeaway? It really all boils down to a fundamental question of power. Who is actually in control of what gets made in Hollywood? The central point, the main thesis, is this: audiences are voting with their wallets. It's that simple. By flocking to movies like Mario and Project Hail Mary and staying home for others, the market itself is creating a financial reality that studios are being forced to pay attention to, whether they want to or not. And check this out. The source ends with a message delivered directly to the audience. It makes this bold declaration: you've won. The claim is that Hollywood is now in a panic, scrambling to undo a whole decade of a strategy that this analysis sees as a total and complete failure. And that brings us to the final, really provocative question that this whole analysis leaves us with. Are these two massive hit movies just a fluke, a temporary blip on the radar? Or are we actually watching the beginning of a permanent, audience-driven shift for the entire entertainment industry? Now that is the billion-dollar question.